Hey, what's going on,
Hi,
brother? How are
how are
you?
you?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
You're out
So
on the East Coast, aren't you?
I am a little bit north of Miami.
I bet it's warm.
It is, yeah, yeah. I'm used to Boston, so it's
It
nothing to
just
complain about.
it snowed here at the beginning of our week, so you
So
know
where are you? You guys are an hour back, right?
I'm an hour back and I'm in South Dakota.
Okay, all right.
Have you ever been here? No. You ever been to
I
South
haven't.
Dakota?
I've never been to South Dakota.
Oh, well, got to come visit
Never.
sometime. It's a good state to be in.
I know it's on the list. It's on the list.
Good, good. Well, I appreciate you coming on this morning. I know you probably got a hundred things that you could be doing, and so spending time with someone from South Dakota, obviously, I appreciate it.
No, I'm excited to be here. I was pumped when I got your message. That's really cool.
Yeah. So obviously, you don't know anything about me or the program that I work for. So if it's all right, just give a quick background, and then we'll just jump right into it.
Perfect.
So we are a basketball program here in South Dakota. We're an AAU program, and so we do a lot in the state of South Dakota. We work out a bunch of high school teams. We work with about 230 high school programs. We reach about 3,000 athletes a summer in terms of our camps and workouts and everything like that. 550 kids play for us in the summertime, wear our jersey, and then actually
Oh, cool.
we work a lot on the reservations in South Dakota and bringing opportunities for kids out there who don't get the
Nice.
opportunities. Some of the kids in metropolitan areas. So we actually end up raising about $83,000 a year for scholarships to help them with financial struggles, kind of play
That's
basketball.
incredible, man.
So,
Nice. Nice.
so we get after it, and obviously during the coronavirus, we can't get in the gym and do camps. So we've actually been doing workouts over Zoom. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so we keep busy. So that's kind of about what we are. A lot of my viewers who are going to be tuning in don't know exactly who you are. So I know about you, and I've watched a lot of your content. If could you just give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I founded the company Your World Within, and basically the idea behind that is it started out as a YouTube channel where, just as an entrepreneur, former athlete myself, right? Talking about kind of the trials and tribulations of life, like the things that I've learned when things went terrible and I fell on my face. Writing about what I learned, and when things were amazing, talking about how I got there, and just kind of sharing those stories on YouTube and on Spotify and all the main platforms. And I just love doing it so much that I realized, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And started, continuing to grow those platforms and building a business around that helps other people realize, life is about perspective. And so much of what we do is about how we look at the world. It's just sometimes we need to hear things a little bit different. And so that's what I do. I tell those stories and help inspire people to live their best lives.
Yeah, and your stories are phenomenal, I might add.
Well, thanks, man.
Why the name Your World Within? I've always wondered that.
Because of the sort of internal, like the idea that reality starts inside, how you see yourself, and then it's projected out. Like there's a misconception that there's a world and then you just kind of react to it, as opposed to, having beliefs, choosing to see the positive, choosing to push forward, choosing to get through things when they're difficult. And then you kind of watch life conform to that. You make your own situation, you're in control, you have power in your own life. And that starts with you inside.
Oh man, I'm so excited for this. It just hit listen to that answer. I can't tell you enough.
That's great.
Just how pumped I am. I mean, I've been having so ever since the virus came out, I've been having a lot of guests on. And someone just said, please save this and upload it. I will end up uploading this to YouTube afterwards, so make
Oh,
sure
cool.
you give it. But
I'll be
so
I'll be sure to share it.
I'm excited about this. So I've been having a lot of guests on recently, usually kind of just for our viewers here in South Dakota, but obviously if they have their own come on, that's awesome. So what I've been doing a lot of, we just talk about basketball. I want to switch gears and I really just want to get into like the mindset because I am obsessed with the mindset of an athlete. And so I am so pumped for this. And so I'm just going to get right into my first question. It's kind of a big one right off the start.
All
Um,
right.
what is your truth about success?
Well, I don't think it's one thing. I think it changes, and I think ultimately it's about being happy. And whatever that is for you, it's a progression, right? For me, success was first understanding what does it mean? And there was like a year and a half, 2 year period of my life where I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what success meant. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what I loved. I didn't know what I cared about. And so I explored and I tried different things, and I tried creating and writing and making music and making films and speech writing and talking on stage, just doing all these things. And what I did was I chipped away at the things that I knew I didn't like. And that really shined a spotlight on what I loved and what success meant for me. And so that allowed me to sort of dive into it. There's a really good quote by J.R.R. Tolkien. I always quote this guy. He says, "Not all who wander are lost." People are afraid to not know. They're afraid to not know what success looks like. They're afraid to say, look, I don't know what 5 years down the road looks like. It's okay not to know what 5 years down the road looks like. That's what life's about, figuring it out. And so, yeah, it's a process.
I think a lot of people kind of have that anxiety about worrying about the future. And just ultimately you got to focus on today. How can you get better today? That's what I have to tell athletes is don't be worrying about your playing time next season. What are you doing today? And
Oh, such good advice. Yeah.
right now they can't get in the gym. And so now they're like, what am I supposed to be doing? You got to find some of those things that kind of make you uncomfortable. And obviously, like the stigma of kids today is they're not going to read a book. So
Right.
like that's what I've been pushing. It's like go read books, and like, well, what am I supposed to read? I'm like, and so I'll ask this question, and I'll kind of give my three. I kind of recommend three books, and that's going to be Relentless by Tim Grover, which is my favorite book.
Ooh, it's a good one.
My favorite. I've read about 3 or 4 times. Toughness by Jay Billis, which I believe every athlete should read, and then Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Those are my top three for sure that I
Okay.
recommend athletes. What would you say your top three are?
Those are I've read two of the three. I've read Leaders Eat Last and Relentless. I first of all, Relentless, I was just talking about that. I have a Books to Business podcast where we read a book a week and dive into it. And Relentless, I've read it 4 times. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like every time you read it, you just get so excited.
It's so good.
That's great for athletes. I would recommend things that sort of don't directly tie into maybe sports or basketball,
Mm-hmm.
but they parallel it. So for example, maybe The Power of Habit, where James Clear talks about ways to every day find a routine and be a little bit better, because basketball, I mean, to your point, you can't worry about next season. You worry about your diet. You worry about how many shots you're taking in the morning. You're worrying about what the workouts are. And those are little habits that compound over time. So that would be one of them. Maybe Essentialism is a great book. And that's about cutting away the stuff that's not important. So like if next season is your goal, next season I want to be a starter on this team. That's my goal. Okay, that's great. What are you doing every day that has nothing to do with that? Because when you take a step back and look at what you're doing, you realize how much of what you do has nothing to do with your goal. And that's about pushing that stuff away. Yeah, maybe I'd start with those two.
Those are two. Who are the authors of both of those?
James Clear, and I think I always have trouble pronouncing the guy's last name. McEwen for Essentialism. I can look it up and get back to you for sure.
Okay, awesome. Oh yeah, I'll have to check those out because I mean daily routines are huge, and if you see like NBA players, like a guy like JJ Redick, he maps his out to the hour, and so I've always been kind of obsessed with their preparation levels of players and like their habits that they get themselves into. So that's definitely one that I'll have to check out.
Yeah.
Obviously, players go through a lot during their season, and whether it's their personal, inabilities to perform or the team's inability to perform. Sometimes it's easy for players to kind of lose faith and lose hope. So how should players react when all hope is lost?
Yeah, well, the way I've approached that, I mean, I've had some very down times. That's what an entrepreneur is: up, down, up, down, up, down, right? Taking some big L's. And what I remind myself is every single successful moment, right? Every accomplishment, everything I'm proud of came right after I got my teeth kicked in. It's when all hope is lost. It's when you feel like a loser. It's when you're down and out that you sort of collect yourself and you say, all right, well, now let's build this thing back up. I think what you find, if you can truly be objective and remove the emotion from the situation, is that there's always a win somewhere. Even in our darkest times, there's some little flicker of light that's going to make you better, or something you can take away from. Like this COVID thing, someone asked me yesterday, like, it's hard because we're putting life on pause, and it certainly is. But what's the one thing you can find? For me, it's more time to triple down on YouTube, start a daily podcast, be more creative. We spend so much time running around saying, I don't have time, I don't have time. Well, guess what? Now you do. And so what can you turn that into? And that would be my advice, mid-season, after a lot, it's like, it sets you up it equips you with the tools, the wisdom, and the understanding to come back better. You just have to remove the emotion, right? The loss doesn't define you. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the process and kicking ass and being great. It requires that you take those L's along the way. That's life in the big city.
Yeah, big city for you. Not too many big cities.
Life in rural America. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, especially for a younger generation, including mine, is we're just not taught to lose.
Right.
I mean, and I'm the participation trophy story that everybody throws out, like, that's true. Like,
yeah,
that's not a thing that people are making up to make fun of. Like, that is the honest to God truth. Like, parents they're coddling their kids. If I'm not having playing time, mom and dad are complaining to coach about it. I guess the difference for me when I was in high school was when I came home complaining to my mom and dad, my dad would look me in the eyes and say, you're not working hard enough. And right. So do you think that that's like okay for like our future generations to be brought up as?
No, I mean, I think it's a great point. Life doesn't care. Life doesn't, you know what I mean? Like the real world, I had to dive into it to understand that you can do things, you can even prepare, you can work hard and still not be good enough. I mean, that's just the reality. Life is so competitive and complex, and things are always coming at you. And 99%, in my opinion, of success is like how you react to the stuff that comes your way. Mm-hmm. And if you're not equipped to react, if you think that every time you fall down or things don't go your way, it defines you, or you're a loser, or life is so hard, you can have a very difficult time doing anything of significance. Life is about, taking these things as they come at you and just moving the pieces around. I always reference, this is such a crazy story for me. Like, this is an epiphany for me. I was in LA, sitting down with a bunch of very successful entrepreneurs. I was the chump at the table, right? Just my mouth shut, just taking it in, just listening to what they're saying. And these guys are talking about life like it's this playground. And they're just out seeing what they can do, seeing what they can manipulate. Oh, this failed. They joke about it. Here's what I learned. And then here's what I did. And it's more about eliminating regret, not the bad things that happen, because that's life. And if you want to make moves, if you want to do anything of importance, you're going to get knocked on your ass. So to your point, long answer to your question. You have to learn that not everyone wins. Mm-hmm. The participation trophy is a misconception. It's not reflective of reality.
Absolutely. So we just kind of talked about lost hope. So now, for the people who are trying to achieve high things, like, what is the mindset for someone who wants to be like a high roller, high achiever, or a successful individual?
I would say small, little things. It's like the reason people stop or get discouraged is you look at that big trophy, or you look at, I use the metaphor of a mountain a lot, and you're like, well, I want that. And you forget that it's just made of little rocks, or like a marathon is comprised of little steps. And that's what success is. People, Mark Cuban wasn't dropped in the executive office of the Mavericks as the owner. He continued his entrepreneurial journey. He bartended, he started companies, he failed, he kept going. He kept going. And every time along the way, he learned something. And it redefined him little by little. And then you look back collectively over 20, 30 years, now he's a big shot. And that's what we see, but that's not the reality. The reality, he's a very ordinary person that had the courage to continue to move forward after life, did its thing. And so that's what I would say. Look at the Mark Cubans of the world and understand what they went through. You can do it too.
I guess what I've always said, and it kind of relates to the book Relentless, is, you referenced the mountain, and Grover says the road to paradise starts in hell, and you got to climb the mountain step by step. And once you reach the peak, you have to find a way to go even higher.
Yeah.
You can't stay at the top. There's somebody behind you nipping at your heels, chasing you. Like, you have to continue pushing forward. So that's kind of always thing that I'll say to athletes is you can never be satisfied with where you're going. You always have to climb higher. You can't get to the top. However, the top is lucrative. I mean, the top is definitely the minority of the people, and the bottom is obviously the majority, because nobody wants to sustain the uncomfortability of making that climb to the top, because they're worried about, I guess in the metaphor, they're worrying about falling back down to the bottom. The way I always look at it, and I ask if you can comment on this, is people are going to make that climb. They're worried about falling down. What do you have to lose? Where are you ending back up? You're ending back up in the same place that you already are. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but I think it kind of the human perception is that you're going to climb and then you're going to fall even further down than what you are right now.
Yeah. It's a great point. People tend to think, what could I lose? When we should be thinking, well, what is there to be gained? To your point in Tim Grover's book, the Jordans, the Kobes, the Wades, they saw opportunity. They didn't see, well, what happens if I fall short? Who cares? I mean, you got to look at the upside. There's a really good segment on the radio the other day that I retweeted about Tom Brady, and people are like, you just left, the organization where you've been winning for 20 years, and you left the coach that you can win with, and what are you doing? And Tom just basically says, yeah, but if I didn't leave, I'd never know. I'd never know what I could have done. And just that curiosity enough, like, what if the upside was way more? What if I could have, and it's the elite look at life, not in terms of failure or what could go wrong, but eliminating regret. They don't want to be 70 or 80 looking back and going, damn, if only I had the courage. And that is the differentiator.
Yeah, the regret. So I just got done watching, I don't know if you know who Tom Bilyeu is.
I do, yeah.
So I watch a lot of his impact theory stuff, and he just had somebody on. They talked about the power of negativity and how it is what I think the man said, it was about 4 to 7 times as powerful as saying something positive. So how effective or how powerful is negative thinking?
Yeah, I mean, as powerful as you let it. There's the idea, something that stuck with me. I think I read this in Happiness Hypothesis about the negativity bias. It's like, you can go to this restaurant, you could have 99 incredible meals, it can be your favorite place, but one time plate comes out, they serve it to you, there's a cockroach in it. You're never going back to that place, right? It's the one negative thing takes over. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle, and it's a process of seeing the positive. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, in every bad situation, there is a win. To me, I guess as a person, right? My growth over the past however many years has been removing the emotion from difficult times and looking at life as a process. And that's really helped me a lot, because you don't beat yourself up. Like I remember when I first started speaking, it was just a situation where there were all these executives. This is before I left my job, and there were people in the program we were presenting, and when I tell you it was terrible, dude, it was bad. And I remember thinking, like, this is it. Like, I can't speak. I don't want to ever do this. I felt bad. I felt like a loser. And then what I've realized as time goes on is you learn that those things don't define you. Like, those moments make you a little bit more courageous, because if I can go through that and now speak for a living, what is it that can really hold you back, right? Nothing. Nothing. It's just the story you tell yourself in your head. And that's how I approach that.
Obviously, being a coach myself, I have to go through. I mean, athletes reach out all the time, all across the state. They'll be complaining about whatever, coach or mom and dad or a teammate. And so I always ask this question. I always ask, who are your three biggest demotivators? Who are the three people that they seem to bring you down? And they'll give me an answer, and they'll say, a teammate, mom and dad, or my coach. And then they'll go, why? And I go, because they're not. You are. You are your biggest demotivator.
Explain that again.
So I asked them, it's a trick question.
Okay.
A trick question. I asked them, who are your three biggest demotivators? Who are the three people in your mind that you think bring you down?
Oh, I see.
So they give me their answer, and it's usually coach or mom and dad or a teammate or whatever. And then they're expecting me to be like, oh yeah, coach, man, he's terrible. But then I say, they're not. You are. Like, you're the one who's bringing yourself down right now. You're the one who's allowing yourself to believe these things. And not to mention, we just live in a negative world. I mean, nobody's happy unless you're bringing somebody down. Like, that's just kind of how we live. But not to mention, like, if you're not, we are results-driven society now. Like, we have to be thriving and succeeding to be happy, which I just think is wrong. I think you should take pride in the work that you put through every single day. You should focus on that. You should just focus on just trying to bring yourself up. I just think negativity is so powerful, especially because, I mean, you said you've learned, what you do is from your learning from your experiences. Well, I've been having to learn from my experiences, and in the past, I've talked myself out of taking opportunities, and it's a regret. Like you just said, it's a regret.
It's you asked earlier about your world within. That's it in a nutshell. You just explained it better than I could in a million years. It's like, these are not your problems externally. It's how you're looking at those things.
So obviously we can talk down on ourselves pretty easily, but how about the importance of self-belief?
You have nothing without that. You have nothing without that. I use the phrase dancing with no music. It's why anything of significance is so challenging, because no one's ever going to walk up to you on the street and kind of put their arm around your shoulder and say, you know what? I think you can start next year on that team, or I think you're going to be a millionaire. No, you have to believe in these things before anyone sees them, anyone hears about them. You have to have the courage to sort of manufacture manufacture them, build them into reality. And it's hard. It's hard because a lot of times the dancing with no music thing means you continue going without validation. I can't tell you how many videos I put out where nothing happened, right? And friends and family are like, all right, Eddie, I love you, but why are you spending so much time on this stuff? Like, it's, what do you get? And it's you're building slowly, and you have this vision for what things could be, but no one else understands. And that's why that positive, that self-belief, that will to sort of create reality as you see it is so tough, but so important. If you don't have that, then you're adhering to how things are right now. And it leaves you powerless to take that dot and connect it to how it can be. You're
really good with like words. Are you are you infatuated with language or anything? Or like reading?
Bro, this is what I do, man. Every single day for the past 5 or 6 years, I just write. Yeah. Thank you, though. I appreciate
You said writing. You think writing is important?
Yeah, I do.
So I watched the Impact Theory with Robin Sharma, and he talks about the importance of journaling your days. Do you recommend doing something like that I mean, I started doing it. Honestly, I kind of started seeing some changes in like how I viewed my days and everything. I would get done with my day and I'd write about it and be like, I had a crappy day or good day or whatever, but I found some good in it. Do you recommend doing anything like that?
Of course. Yeah, you learn so much about yourself. You know, my morning routine has fluctuated, and to be honest, I probably should be better about the journal thing. I haven't done that in a while, but what I do is every morning I just started Your World Within Daily, a podcast where I get up and I talk about whatever's on my mind that day, or whatever I went through yesterday, and kind of flip it in a way that will help other people in whatever it is they're doing. But it causes you to reflect. And so, long story short, whether it's journaling or just sitting alone thinking, some type of routine, like you can live your whole life and miss very obvious things because you never took the time to ask yourself those questions. It's really an amazing thing. It's like, if you don't stop and say, well, what do I want to be doing? Okay, simple question. What am I doing? Simple question. What's the difference between the two? You can live an entire life not how you want to live it. So if journaling is the mechanism, I 100%, I'm all for it. But as long as those questions are being asked, you're thinking, you're reflecting, what happened yesterday? What was great? How can I make it happen again? What sucked? How can I prevent that? You know what I mean? Like those types of questions.
Yeah, that's a good answer. All right, I'm going to transition to my last three here because I could probably go for hours. I can go for hours and hours like this. So explain what like identity is like as an individual. So obviously for me, it's what's my purpose? Like what am I here for? And then what do I want to achieve? Like those are kind of what I have to tie into like identity and who I am. So what is identity for you?
I think it's a story you tell yourself about who you are. And the interesting thing about that is, you know, I think I first heard this from Tony Robbins, but he says humans always follow through on who they believe they are. And he used the example of a smoker, someone trying to quit smoking. And he says, if they're telling themselves, I'm a smoker and I'm trying to quit, they're not going to be able to quit, or at least not as easily as someone that says, I'm not a smoker, I'm done. That's not what I do. That's not me. So and we've all probably been there, right? Our identity, how we see ourselves, has changed and evolved over our lifetime, over the years. And so that's why it's so important. You mentioned positive self-talk, you know, seeing yourself as someone who makes little goals, sets little goals, accomplishes them, who believes in themselves, who gets things done, telling yourself that story that allows you to then live up to it, live up to the idea you've created for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right. So here's my last question, and before my big last finale.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, it's a good one. Motivation is great. You know, like everybody needs it, but I don't think that it's enough. And I'll tell you why. I just think that it's more of a moment thing, that you're motivated. And I think that it's for the long term, like you have to be driven and you have to have that purpose for what you're doing. So like, I'm motivated to get in the gym. I don't think so. I'm motivated to go play hard in this game. Like that's just a momentary thing. So is motivation enough?
Well, it depends how you define motivation. I mean, it's certainly, thoughts are never enough, you know. I think, you know, mindset, the way you look at the world, coupled with action is how you get things done. Like the mindset, the motivation, the inspiration, like you need to see yourself, like we discussed, as a winner, someone that can get things done. You need to believe in yourself. You need to be excited about the process. But you got to get your ass out of bed and start making the progress, taking the steps, putting in the work. And so, you know, when people find themselves unmotivated, what I tend to find is, you know, like I mentioned earlier, they start to see things as too big, and they start to see their output and their actions as not making a difference. And, you know, progress is, you know, momentum is everything. Progress is happiness. And so little things every day create that feeling, that excitement, like you're moving towards the goal. You have to take those little steps, but you have to. So yeah, they go hand in hand, right? The ideal, the mindset, the motivation, and then the small, tangible steps that you can take, you can complete, you can look yourself in the mirror every day, right before you go to bed, and you say, I conquered what I set out to conquer. I'm a winner. And when I get up tomorrow, part two, you know?
was a really good answer, and it kind of brought up a part B to the question.
Hit me.
Obviously, so here's the thing with athletes today is they lack self-motivation. They can't get themselves going. They are relying on like coach to come in and give them a pregame speech and just get some amped, or or some players will listen to content from someone like you, or other creators on YouTube or music or whatever. They're relying on these other tools to get them going, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously that's how you make your living, so we wouldn't want you going out of business or anything. But obviously, self-motivation for me, I think, is a very important, and it gets you going, gets you better on a day-to-day basis. So kind of quick answer, how important is self-motivation?
It's incredibly important. And coincidentally, in our Books to Business podcast, we're doing Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And it's the idea that if you don't understand why, if you're not passionate about it, if you don't know the reason you're in something, generally, if you have to look outside externally for motivation, something's off somewhere. Maybe you're not in the right place. You need to adjust some things. Like I remember one of my biggest life epiphanies was, being in the corporate world, getting up every day and being like, I got to find a way to be excited here. I got to find a reason to jump out of bed in the morning. And when you take a second, you sit back and you think to yourself, it's like, well, what is my why? And it causes you to make those changes necessary, right? Self-motivation, like you should be excited. What you're doing should be methodical because it should align with what's important to you. And that's what I mean by like, we do so many things every day that don't align with our goals, that we just do to do. So, as an athlete, understand what it is you're trying to do. And you should believe in it and you should be excited about it. And the first thing I would think to myself, if every day when I'm stepping on the court, I'm like, I need the coach to pump me up. Well, what changes do I need to make in my life with how I see the world that better prepare me for that?
Absolutely. Great answer. All right. Here's my last one. It's kind of a lengthy question, so I'll try and.
All right.
All right. So you obviously are a successful individual. Let's say tomorrow you were to pass on, and everything that you have accomplished gets erased. It comes with you, your wealth, your everything. All right. Everything that you've done, you've made, it goes with you. But you can leave behind 3 things about life that you know to be true. What are those 3 things?
All right. Let me see here. This is a loaded question here.
Those 3 things.
All right. Let me see here. This is a loaded question here. I would say definitely that life is what you make it. I think people don't realize how much control they have over their own lives and their own destiny by mapping out what's important to them and moving towards that. I think another thing, or maybe number 2 here, would be, neglecting the things that are most valuable. Like the people in our lives. This is sort of a morbid thought, but if you are in your hospital bed, right, and say you had a few days to live, who are the people that are going to come visit you, right? You probably know in your head who they are, who are going to be there sitting by your bedside. Why are they not the people you talk to most? Why is it people that probably wouldn't be there? So that's another thing. And then the third, you're going to say something?
No. Go ahead.
Got a finger point. And then the third thing I think is just big things are only the culmination of small things. I mean, that's transformed my entire life. Like anything. The presidency of the United States, holding that office, it's a culmination of little steps, right? Being methodical in your approach and just one day at a time doing something that moves you forward. No one is just dropped in this position of power or influence or success.
Absolutely. First of all, I love how you always say little things lead to big things, because
important.
I always have to say that on the basketball floor, and the players get sick of hearing it. Like, you got to do little things, do whatever,
Listen to coach.
You listen to coach. That's right. Rule number 1. Thank you. You just said that thing about your hospital bed, and it's so true. It's so true, especially for for younger generations such as myself is people, they just don't see about the, like, who would be at your hospital bed. You know, we're more
Yeah.
worried about who's not there.
Care about the opinions of people that
It don't
don't care
matter.
about us. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh man, that was huge. I'm so happy that you said
Well,
that.
I'm glad, brother. I'm glad.
That was great. Actually, speaking of that, and I don't know kind of what advocate you are for like mental health or anything like that. We are actually going to start promoting a lot of like mental health things for like younger kids, high schoolers, college
Oh,
kids.
fantastic. Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you'd be interested in helping out with anything like that. We're going to be doing a lot of different stuff in the coming weeks.
Yeah, let's chat about it. I'd love to.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Well, listen, like I said, I could go on for another hour. This is awesome for me, and I love kind of talking about this stuff and hearing different perspectives. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your morning and coming on and